So today's session, no more surprise renewals, is what we're really talking about today. And this isn't just eliminating surprise renewals through technology, but really through better observability of your customer interactions. So today's not just about the expand module. What I really want you to walk away with today is a framework and a checklist that you can implement with your team and really start doing this better. So let's dive in and get started. Krithika, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Ryan. Happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
It's going to be a good one. I love starting a webinar like this. I'm in trouble again, and here's why. My team is missing critical insights that should look familiar to everybody, right? Every company struggles with these quotes that you're seeing here on the screen. And it's not just because the data isn't there, but it's because nobody has a systematic way to extract and interpret the signals that they need to answer these questions in a routine basis, in a very consistent basis. And these are questions that appear in every organization because they all stem from that same problem. We aren't observing our post sales interactions with enough depth, with a continuity. We're not getting the context that we need. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on it by showing you the expand module, but we're also going to show you some really great tips on how to get into this. So every executive is asking these same questions, right? Who's going to renew early? Where's the churn hiding? Why did this account surprise us? And these questions aren't a sign of failure. They're really just a sign of missing that visibility that we're talking about. So let's get into some of these universal methods that can help you even if you're not using Expand. And kind of let's start with our mission statement first. So whether you're using AI or spreadsheets, growth in this area really depends on being able to see those early signals, right? Customer sentiment shifts, product friction, stalled cases, risk language that people are exhibiting before that renewal season hits, which is really important. So if you're just sampling a small part of your customer experience, you're going to really miss a lot of these interactions and you're going to miss that larger picture. And it's going to be really hard to be proactive about it. So let's go deeper into why this matters. And these numbers aren't just data points. I really think this is a mandate that if you aren't analyzing 100% of your customer interactions, not just CSAT surveys, but 100% of your interactions, you're really flying blind. Your customers care about the support they receive. We can see that with that top stat from Microsoft. The companies that are investing in this, as we can see from a Qualtrics survey, they're really seeing the dividends from this investment in CX. And then this third one is this Forrester report conclusion that I think is really interesting. Understanding intent is so key now, right? We're seeing that it's so important for brands to turn intent into emotion and really create that brand loyalty. So now I want to show you some frameworks that we built from talking to some of our most successful customers, from talking to some great brands. This is really a lightweight framework that any team can implement starting tomorrow. So what I put together here is a 5-step framework of how you can begin with zero budget doing this better. These practices alone will make your renewal cycles more predictable. And in my next couple slides, I'm going to show you these 2 highlighted yellow areas as well. So I think it's important to analyze these early risks in your high value accounts, get this weekly signal review going with your customer success team so that these teams are really aligned. Build this top 10 report, right? We're big fans of that here at SupportLogic for our customers. Looking at monthly product friction is huge, right? That connection between support and product is so important. And then this executive dashboard is a really key step as well. So let's get into those early risk signals and what those are. The first one is sentiment shift, because even polite language can mask frustration. And so I think that's a really important one. And the next one to really look at for every team is this case volume spike and dip situation, because both can indicate instability or hidden issues. The next one to really look at is engineering involvement, reopening of cases. These can be a really strong predictor we've seen in data of churn risk, right? So that's a really important one to look at when you're collecting signals and when you're doing this with no matter what method you're using. And the next one is in this progress pattern situation. Long resolution times, SLA misses, excessive back and forth. This is more of a classic metric that teams are used to measuring, and it's still a great one, right? So all four of these are really good indicators for these renewals and these churns and these type of account-based risks and signals that we're helping solve here today. So let's get into this executive visibility dashboard. This is what that looks like across 5 areas. You've got your top 10 accounts by risk, very important to monitor. You've got your top 10 accounts by expansion potential. That's another really great one. And I love some of these next ones here that SupportLogic is actually really good at helping you track, which is a sentiment trend line for your customers, friction themes, which is something that can be extracted these days with AI so much easier, right? Those things are being pulled out of your cases. And then looking at engineering escalations and reopen counts are huge as well. So this is a great way to give your executives a view of what accounts are at risk, right? So since we've shown you a lot of the manual ways that you can get in this, and we understand the process behind eliminating surprise renewals, I'm excited to talk about how automation really takes this from doable to scalable. And that's where this expand module comes in. And that's why Krithika has joined me to talk about how amazing this module is and everything that goes into it. So, Krithika, can you go into how this all works for us?
Absolutely. All right. So if I'm an account manager, like Ryan mentioned, there are a lot of things that I keep tab of. I constantly want to keep monitor the health of my accounts. I don't want any surprises in terms of churn. I want to be on top of renewals. This is how my typical day looks like, right? I want to collaborate, I want to engage with my customers. But of course, what would help me is if a lot of these can be automated, and that's where SupportLogic comes in. We have a lot of ambient AI agents built that automate these a lot of the mundane work for me by monitoring every interaction, assessing the health of the account, and identifying patterns, outliers, and trends, and recommending insights that makes my life much more easier. Now let's go in a little bit more deep to look at all of these AI agents that I'm referring to. Right. The expand module is powered by 5 AI agents. We'll be double clicking on a couple of these today. At a high level, I'll walk you through the 5. The first one is a sentiment agent. Again, this is something that you're probably familiar with in the context of other modules as well, where we are able to detect 40 plus sentiments and intents in across the case conversations. So this is something that is very relevant when we are determining the health of the account, because when we say the health of the account is really driven by all of the support conversations that kind of build into it. And then we have the escalation agent, which predicts escalations in a timely manner. It's based on the activity and history. Again, this is also something you've seen in the context of other modules. Now, we'll be diving a little bit more deep into the other 3 agents, which is the account health agent, summarization agent, and voice agent. So maybe Ryan, if you can take us to the next slide, we'll talk a little in more detail. All right. Now, what does the account health agent do? It essentially builds a score for you called an account health score. High account health score essentially means that the health of your account is good. A low health score means it could use some love and care. Now, what does a high account health score mean? It means that there's a lot of positive engagement going on. And on the flip side, if let's say there are a lot of escalations, or if there are some contributing factors which are going in the negative direction, then the health score keeps dropping. And when the condition improves, we bump up the health score, right? The score is not something that is I would say it depends on a lot of factors, and we'll go through each one of those factors here. So as you can see, there are broadly 5 categories. The first one is the case trend. So this is based on the volume of the case and also the activity in terms of how much spike or dip there is to the volume. And then the second category is the product complexity, where we look into what kind of cases are we dealing with. Are these mostly Q&A, or are these more cases which require an engineering issue to be fixed? And how complex are these issues? Does the case get reopened after a support engineer has closed it? So that kind of leads into the complexity area. And then the third area that the AI agent looks into is the support quality. So here there are a lot of factors that go into it. For example, how long did it take for a case to get resolved? How many people were involved in the resolution of the case? How many conversation back and forth did we have? How many respondents were involved? What was the SLA looking like? The fourth category is the business impact. So here we look into what kind of case escalations did we have? Did we have severity, very high severity issues? Were there cases with churn risk? All of that kind of determines the business impact on the account itself. And then the last one is the customer experience. Now, what kind of signals are we detecting on the cases? What kind of negative signals, needs attention signals? And if, let's say, if we have access to the CSAT and NPS score, we can factor that as well in determining the customer experience aspect of the account health. Now, together, we have about 15 plus factors that shape the health of the account. And we look at it from two factors. One is the volume. And in comparison with, let's say I'm looking at the health of one account, I'm looking at the volume of all of these different contribution factors in comparison with another account which has a similar product. And I'm also looking at it from a trend perspective by looking at the historical contribution. So that together is how we are able to determine the health of the account. Now, there's a lot of configurability that's possible over here. Out of the box, we have some weightages that can be assigned to each one of these categories. Of course, each that's configurable, and not just at a category level, you can also define weights at an individual factor level. So this helps you really fine tune what kind of distribution makes sense to you. You can also determine, hey, do I want to be looking at a case data for the last 5 weeks, or should I be looking at last 12 weeks? It again really depends on the volume that you want to work with. So in a nutshell, we aggregate all of the case data that is associated with an account. We look at the volume, we look at the data distribution, we look at outliers, we look at trends, and then assign some factor weightages based on which we're able to compute the health of the account. Now, this health score is your indicator. Higher the score, your account's doing well. Contribution factors start, if they're not doing so well, we take away points. Any score dipping is an early warning sign for you. With that, let's move on to the next agent, which is the voice agent. Now, we talked about this signal detection agent, which is capable of detecting over 40 plus nuanced signals. Now, the voice agent goes a step beyond, where it's really powered by the 3 layers that you see over here. Now, the data extraction engine is able to bring in all of the data from across multiple enterprise systems, and it's able to once you bring in the system, once you bring in all of the data, what we do with the voice agent is not just extract the text data, but we are also now looking at voice data. So we are able to bring in, through the integrations with the CCaaS platforms that we have, we are able to bring in all of the voice calls into the system. Now, once the data is in there, we leverage the signal extraction engine. Now, as the signal extraction engine is built using a lot of custom AI models that we have, and it is able to detect very nuanced signals, which is very domain specific. And now this is further tuned to support voice interactions. Now, voice interactions are going to be different compared to a typical case conversation where it's going to be probably choppy back and forth. So being able to understand that voice, the nuances of a voice, is also something that we have built in with the voice agent. And third aspect is the context engine, where we are building context over a period of time. So we look at all of the voice interactions that have happened in the context of a case, all of the voice interactions that have happened in the context of an account. All of this holistically come together in order for us to determine a lot of the scoring, and which eventually powers our summarization and scoring aspects. Ryan, we can go to the third one. Okay, now let's look at the third agent, which is our summarization agent. Now, this again is really powered by the data and the context engine that's underneath. Now, when we look at the data, we have a lot of data coming in through, let's say, the multiple enterprise integrations through, be it text data, be it voice data. Now, all of this once in the system, we detect a lot of insights such as signals, such as escalation, such as case performance, agent insights, and so on. Now, the summarization agent leverages all of this context. Not just that, it starts off by auto-summarizing every case that comes in. Now, when we do that, we are able to understand why this case was reported, what was the underlying issue. And by looking at all of those cases pertaining to an account, we are able to determine the issues and patterns associated with an account. Likewise, we tap into all of these deep case insights that I was talking about. And in addition to that, it's not just the case insights, it's also about the agent insights. For example, what does the agent performance look like? What kind of skills they have? What does their bandwidth look like? And also the case performance insights. Now, all of this also powers the actual summarization of the account itself. And with all of this information, we have a systematic way of determining which are the high impact cases and what are the watch list accounts that you want to watch out for. So we have an inbuilt scoring mechanism through which we are able to surface these high impact cases and watch list accounts when you're looking at either one account or multiple accounts. We'll go through that in a little bit more detail during the demo. And once I have done all of the analysis, what the summarization agent then does is it surfaces the possible next steps for you. And this is purely, I would say, very contextual, depending upon the patterns and trends that have been observed. Now, once all of this data is collected and organized, then we have a prompt management system that works with this. Now, it is very dynamic in nature, depending upon the workflow and the use case, the right prompt is picked. And we also have guardrails in place to ensure that we have the right fallbacks in place and we're protected from any security concerns or unwanted downtimes and so on. And we then integrate with the enterprise LLMs. So here we have a constant evaluation that we do in order to identify the right model that we want to use for depending upon the use case. And this is a constant evaluation that we do to make sure that the performance, quality, and cost aspects are taken into consideration. So that's the fifth agent that is powering the expand module. Now, with that, without background in mind, let me walk you through what it looks like, right? What is the output of all of these AI agents when they come together? How does it actually automate and improve the life of an account manager? All right, so here I'm an account manager and I'm in my CRM system. Of course, we have the the SupportLogic insights embedded within the CRM. So I have the insights served to me directly within the place where I'm working. And this is something that is reusable, so it could be embedded in any CRM that you might be using. So as an account manager, I know that renewal is coming up for FC Tokyo. So when I'm here, I do notice that there is something off. The account health score seems to be dropping. I see that it seemed to be doing well, but there is a bit of a dip here. So that's concerning as an account manager. So it gives me also a very quick view on all of the contribution factors that I talked about earlier. So this is the account health agent that is determining the score based on all of these contribution factors. So I can see all of the factors, and if needed, I can also get a very high level summary from here. But in this particular case, I see that there is enough information here that warrants me to go take a double click and deep dive into what exactly is going on with the case. So I'm going to go into SupportLogic here. Now here I want to start looking at the account summary first. Now, the account summary, like I mentioned, it surfaces some key aspects here. One is it gives me some analytical information about how the account is doing, how many cases open. But more importantly, what it does is it gives me a list of all the high impact cases that I need to be focusing on. Now, of course, this account could be having a lot of cases open, but using this insights based on a lot of the signals and depending on whether it has escalations, whether it has severity and so on, based on a lot of factors, we are able to surface which high impact issues that I as an account manager have to focus. And not just that, it also gives me a quick summary. This summary is basically that was computed when the case was ingested into SupportLogic. It tells me what the problem is, what is the underlying problem for this particular case. It tells me who I can reach out to if I want to get a more detailed view about this case. It also tells me a little bit more about the problem that's associated with the case, right? Like I think we'll see how the problems turn into patterns as well. It also gives me a good understanding of what kind of signals I am seeing within my account. Now, here I see that there are follow-up requests in about 6 cases, which are all managed by Amanda's chart. I see there are confusion signals detected. So it also gives me a quick touch point on where I need to double click. Beyond just giving me where I can act on in the short term, it also gives me the long-term view. For example, I see that there's been a high volume of engineering issues. There's been a jump from 323 to 472 in the last 1 week. And I see that there's some high workload issue with a particular support engineer. I see that's been spike in the SLA breach. I see that there are some issues with negative signals associated with certain agents. So all of these are very actionable insights that I can double click and work with. Now this is just giving me a summary, but let's say I also want to be very analytical in nature. I'm happy with the summary, but I do also want to double click and actually, let me go back here, look at the health score and the contribution factors. I can do so over here. So for example, I have 23 negative and needs attention signals. I can review each one of these cases, right? So it's not just about high impact issues. I can systematically go into all of the cases that have negative and needs attentions. I can see the signals right here. I can go into the case detail if needed. So it also gives me the nice slice and dice and double click. In addition to that, if I want to take a broad stroke and not just look at the insights generated by the account health agent or the summarization agent, I also have a view of my case trend over a period of time. You can change the time window to see however far back you want to. I can see the signals detected. There's a lot of capabilities here to be able to group by, let's say, attention score, sentiment score by signal type. So all of those can also be, it further just powers you there. And lastly, I also want to talk about the interactions aspect. Now, as an account manager, yes, I care about the support interactions, but I also would like to understand the health of this account more holistically, not just from a support perspective, but also from the context of how are my success managers, what kind of conversations are they having with the customer, how are the renewal discussions coming along? Are there any signals that I should be watching out from those conversations? And that's what we capture over here. So in this case, we are looking at all of the Zoom conversations that my team has had with FC Tokyo, given that renewal is coming. There's been a lot of activity here. Here, I also see signals which indicate that there's been some confusion or there's been some follow-up requests. So that's also a good starting point for me to double click and work with those specific owners. So I can here group it by owner and I can see that, okay, AJ Brown has had an interaction where there's been some confusion. So I can go work with AJ Brown on this particular conversation. Now, this is a very narrow view of what FC Tokyo as an account is doing. But as an account manager, especially if I'm account leader working with a lot of strategic accounts, like Ryan mentioned earlier, having that top 10 strategic account view is really important for me because I want to see it at an elevated level as well. Now let's look at how that view shows up here. Now I have about 7 accounts that I have identified as my strategic accounts. So I can get a quick view of the health, which ones have churn risk, But not just that, I can actually also get a cohort level summary, not an individual account level summary, but an account cohort summary over here. In the case of an account, it gave me all of the cases that I need to pay attention to, the high impact issues. But when I'm looking at an account cohort, it tells me which of those 7 accounts, again, this can be a bigger number in your case, but it tells me what are the watch list accounts for me. Which ones are potentially at risk and I need to double click on. Now, in this example, we have Atlanta United and 2 more accounts. It also not only tells me which accounts are at risk, but also where exactly the issues are. So it looks like there are these 2 cases with Atlanta United where there's some issue, and it also tells me who it's been managed by. So it has all the context required for me to act on. Now let's look at the other part here, which is the overall patterns and trends. Now here, again, I'm seeing that this one account level pattern, this particular account, there's been technical issues related to one particular product, right? Like it's a specific product insight that we have surfaced in the context of an account cohort summary. So I know that there's maybe this particular problem that is recurring, or this is a pattern, and we need to perhaps reach out to the right stakeholders to work on this. I also see that the escalation rates have increased in the last 5 weeks, which I will show how we'll go into the details of this. And I also see that there are certain agents with high caseloads and some recurring teams with some product issues, which I can take it up with the corresponding product manager or product team. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the ambient AI agents, which is the AI health agent, which was determining the health score. We had the voice agent, which was determining the sentiments in the voice calls that my customer success team was having with the customer. Now we have the summarization agent, which is not only determining all of these insights and patterns and trends, but it is also recommending what possible actions I can take. And they're contextual in nature. It just doesn't tell me a static list of, okay, go do A, B, and C, but rather it tells me that I need to review the escalation trend because it observe a trend that escalation rates have spiked, and it sees that there's an agent issue. I think that's something we're working on. It's on the roadmap where we will also start showing the review agent insight. But here you can see that there was a churn identified, there's an escalation. So let's click in and see what are additional insights I can work with, given that there's been a spike in the escalation. So here at a high level, I see the numbers, I just get an analytical view. But what's more important is it tells me where the issues are. It tells me which cases are contributing, what are the critical cases that are contributing to this escalations, who are the agents that are working on these escalation cases. And like it looks like all the 14 escalated cases have reached SLA, and who is it being managed by? I think in this particular case, it did not give me any product insight, but in some cases, it will also tell me like, okay, if there's an escalation, is it tied to a certain product or a particular issue category? Now I can reach out to the corresponding account manager right from here so that I can take this conversation to the next level and see how this can be resolved. Now let's look at the other aspects. For example, I can review the watch list accounts here. So in this case, I see that the renewal for this account is coming up in a couple of months, and I see the contract value. I get a very high level summary of how many cases this particular account has and so on. So this again gives me the right level of information before I can double click. Review churn risk. In this case, there's one review that one churn has been identified. And in this example here, we are showing the churn comment. But what we also do is we detect the underlying reason for the churn. When we do the summarization of the case, when we detect a churn signal, we also identify what is potentially causing that churn. So that will give me a better insight. Then I can reach out to the corresponding manager right from here. So that's, in a nutshell, how the expand module will help an account manager like me to stay on top of the health of my account and help me identify the right accounts and issues that I need to focus on and make sure that I don't miss any signals, be it churn or expansion. All right. Ryan, with that, I will hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Krithika. During your demo, I decided I wanted to flash back to this slide and
Mhm.
really look at these are the problems that we're solving and we're automating with these ambient AI agents, right? Now, these different members of your team, they have these really important questions about what's going on with the data in your post-sales CX experience. And because SupportLogic is using NLP to comb these experiences and summarize them and extract the signals from different channels like voice and look for those escalation predictions and those churn predictions. You're getting all those things wrapped in to really answer these really high level important questions that your executives are asking and your account managers are asking. And this is why the customers of ours that are using this are seeing such success with it. And this is a summary of what Expand Module is all about, right? These are the impacts that you're getting with a module like this, with churn reduction and with improving your KPIs, improving your efficiency, and improving how your operations can pull insights. Over here on the panel here, you can see some of those key features that Krithika went through with the account health score, with the widget in Salesforce, which is such a cool integration. And then also these things can be integrated into something like Gainsight as well, which is that CS tool integration call out that we have there. And then Krithika did such a great job going through these different agents that are involved in powering this module. Before we leave for the day, I wanted to call out some of the really great success stories that we have recently in using a lot of our tools. And you can see CyberArk here is reducing their unassigned queue, really looking at so much negative sentiment. And not that they have a lot of negative sentiment, but the negative sentiment that does come in, they're really able to capture it and act on it, which is a really operationally efficient way of working and really catching those things before they even get close to churn or escalations. And then this great story of NICE and how they are using our knowledge agent and using so many of our productivity tools to see such an incredible reduction in their MTTR as well. In addition to these two stories, which we're working on and we're going to get up on our site, I really encourage you to jump into our YouTube channel, which you can just find by going to YouTube and typing in SupportLogic and seeing so many sessions just like this one today that really do deep dives into the technical abilities behind these ambient agents that our customers use to reduce escalations, reduce case volume, and reduce the churn by getting those early signals. And if you enjoyed this webinar, please join us in 2 weeks. I'm going to be joined by Uthaya, one of our awesome product managers, just like Krithika, to go all through our quality assurance agent and our modern auto QA solution, where we look at 100% of your cases. And we'll be doing that on December 17th. So, Krithika, thanks so much for that awesome demo. And hope you have a great holiday.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you all for joining. It was a pleasure.